you can't make your spouse happy. I said, well, yeah, that makes sense. And then he continued after a pregnant pause, you can only make your spouse happier. I'm so glad you made it here. Before you watch this video, click the subscribe button and ring the bell so that you get access and notifications to 3 videos a week on the art and science of ethical influence. I'll appreciate it, and so will many. Is a good friend of mine. He lives about 4 miles away from where I live and about 10 miles away from where I'm sitting, is John Gray. Now, he's a best-selling author, probably has sold over 40 million copies of his books. And he taught me the principle of self-initiative. Now, not really so much about men and women, but we're in a men's group here in Marin, which is a subset of the Transformational Leadership Council, which I'm in with him and many other thought leaders. And I remember sitting while we're sharing. They're just men, and there's a women's group as well. If you're watching, hello, you know who you are. I'm not going to name any names. But for the men's group, one time John said something, and I was going through a divorce, and like any divorce, very painful. I thought at one time it would last forever. I made a big deal out of being a family-centered entrepreneur. I felt like a failure. There was guilt and shame, and I take 100% responsibility, for my part of that. So there's no blame shifting or shaming my former spouse, and we work well together to raise our kids, and we live about 6 miles apart. But what John taught me is something that I never realized, and it's about self-initiative. And it deals with employees, it deals with your spouse, it deals with parents, friends, etc., that you may not be happy with. And he said it in the context between men and women. So he was talking to men, and he said, you can't make your spouse happy. I said, well, yeah, that makes sense. And then he continued after a pregnant pause, you can only make your spouse happier. So let me rephrase that in another context. You can't make your employees happy. You can only make them happier. You can't make your parents, if they're living, happy. You can only make them happier. And I would even say you can't make your kids happy. You can only make them happier. How do you have a world-class company? Fire all the unhappy people. All the energy vampires that are there that drain and strain all of the marrow, the energetic marrow from your bones and your body, from the group. They could be A players, but they're just not happy. So that's one thing that we teach. And it's something that I got from another mentor from Wizard Academy. He developed that over 20 years ago. His name is Roy H. Williams. I talk about him a lot. He has the Monday Morning Memo every single week. You can go to mondaymorningmemo.com and check it out. It's free. And that's his exposure vehicle, like this is mine every Friday. And you're probably watching the replay. But think about the wisdom of that. You can't make someone happy. You can only make them happier. So self-initiative means it's your, sorry, in Asia, this is rude. It's your opportunity, and it's your choice to be happy. Someone else can only make you happier. Otherwise, there's this unhealthy enabling that's going back and forth. So think about the simplicity of that. Think about how powerful that one idea is, and I hope you've extracted some wisdom from the principle of self-initiative from John Gray. My good friend, Ivan Misner, man, what a great friend. Always, he says the same thing every single time when I'm about to say goodbye. He says, Alex, what can I do for you? Another colleague who's not as close of a friend, but I've met several times, is Lou Holtz, the great coach of Notre Dame and great football coach, commentator. He says the same thing. What can I do for you? Harvey McKay introduced me to Lou Holtz, many years ago. Well, Ivan Misner I've known for years, and he's the founder of BNI, Business Network International, the world's largest networking organization, professional networking organization. He's taught me a lot of things. I mean, if you go into a BNI meeting, everyone knows giver's gain, 2 words, alliteration, but that's not what I learned from Ivan. I learned the power of what a hub firm is. And I'm going to show you what a hub firm is. I'm just taking my mouse so that you see the screenshot of this. A hub firm is being the hub of referral. So, for example, if you are the middle, you see it there? If you are the middle, then you are the hub firm. Let me make this a little bigger so you see it. So if you're here, you're the hub firm. Now, who is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H? Well, you can put your company as the hub firm, right? And you can put other companies that are within that hub firm network where you become dispatch, right? So for example, a wedding planner could be the hub firm. And then what's called the wedding mafia, a high price caterer, a low price caterer. That could be A and B. A baker could be C. D could be a florist. E could be high price photographer. F can be low price photographer. G could be the jeweler. And then H can be the wedding chapel. And the hub firm concept continues. So that's what I do to create networks. And this is not where you're exchanging capital. This is where you're exchanging relationship capital, which it's tough to lose until you do something stupid, right? You can just lose that overnight, like Tiger Woods or Bill Clinton or others. I mean, when their human side comes out and is public in the era of social media and nothing is private anymore, relationship capital can take a nosedive. Even if people are lying about you, you can lose relationship capital. Now, this book is my favorite book of Ivan Misner's. He's a multi-time best-selling, New York Times best-selling author, Amazon best-selling author. That's not very difficult to get. USA Today. And Networking Like a Pro, turning contacts into connections, right? That is where I learned about the hub firm. So with Ivan Misner, if you become a hub firm for your own sphere of influence, then you become the center of that sphere of influence. And that's a great way to live. And it's a great way to give. Giver's gain. Remember, BNI. You may be in a group. Number 13 is Marianne Williamson. Now, I originally met Marianne in New York City. It was in the mid-1990s. But then I re-met her under more intimate conditions in a room with other transformational leaders at, I mentioned before, TLC. And we got to strike up a conversation, and I did a little mini interview, and I really honor and respect her work. Now, what I learned from her, and I don't think she calls it this, but this is what I learned, the wisdom I extracted from Marianne is inadequacy, the principle of inadequacy. Now, this is in the realm of a silly mistake, is feeling that you're inadequate. And what Marianne believes is that the answer, I'm paraphrasing, this is what I've learned from her. What she believes that the answer to all human problems is acceptance. And a lot of her tribe are in recovery, whether it's drug addiction or alcohol addiction. She's a politician now, she's in the political realm, but she's bringing, spirit-centered consciousness to politics, which I think it's about time, right? In this female era, feminine era, as we, move towards and past the turn of the 21st century. I think it's awesome. And what Marianne taught me is that acceptance is the first step. And if you know something about 12-step programs, and part of the reason why they work, right, is because acceptance is usually the first step. Acceptance of something, whether you're powerless over the substance that has just ruined your life temporarily, or if you take 100% responsibility of your part of something that went sideways. For example, a divorce or a bankruptcy or something. So acceptance is the first start. Never underestimate the power of denial. That's what I tell my kids. So Marianne has a very well-known quote. It's quoted often. Sometimes the late Nelson Mandela is given credit for the quote, but it's really Marianne Williamson's quote, as far as I know. And it's something like this. I'm paraphrasing. She said, our deepest fear is not the fact that we are inadequate, which is not a fact. It's not the feeling that we are inadequate. Thus, the feeling of inadequacy, because I think it's a feeling. I don't think it's a fact. She said, our deepest fear is the fact that we are more powerful beyond any measure. It's our light that frightens us, not our darkness. Now, you can look up the quote so you get it, but I paraphrased it. So basically, it's not the fact that we feel inadequate or not enough or all the mommy daddy issues that we have. Okay, well, maybe you don't have any issues, but I'm sure I do. And it gets expressed in many different ways, right? It's not the inadequacy that we're afraid of. It's our greatness. And when I read that quote many years ago, I came up with my own, and I utilize it on stage, and it's on banners on Facebook and my YouTube pages. And here it is. You are not as good as you think you are. You're better. Now, it's important to have a little pregnant pause there. So that is kind of a repurposed quote that I came up with thanks to Marianne Williamson, because inadequacy always gets in the way. You don't have to accept that you're inadequate, because that is a force that doesn't need to have power. You can just accept that you don't have a certain skill set, or you don't have a certain attitude required. Skills and tools, that's what you need to become a successful entrepreneur. And you can have a starting point with a community, with a new language, with a new role model, which is really what all 12-step programs have. They have a new language, they have a new community, and they have new role models, like the sponsor, right? And when you go 3 for 3, then that trifecta gets you to stay there. And that's what we do with our students. We have a glossary of terms. We have Facebook groups where they can commune. And then the role model originally is me. And then I find other ambassadors. You may be one of them. If you're watching, you're probably smiling. And they're the ones who drive the Facebook groups. And they go through the ascension model of student, coach, partner, right? First, you learn from me. Then you coach my stuff. Then you become a partner so I can co-promote and you can co-promote our stuff together. That's my ascension model. So the principle of inadequacy is that's not what we ultimately fear. Okay, what we ultimately fear is we are greater than we can possibly imagine. And that level of power is a lot of responsibility. Think about that, all right? I think it's cool. Next, Lisa Nichols, my good friend, my sister from another mister. I say that I'm your white chocolate brother, right? From another mother. Well, Lisa and I have been friends many, many years. But what I learned from Lisa is the principle of rescue. Now, what is that? Nathaniel Brandon, when he was alive, he was a mentor through another colleague of mine. And I've read all his books. I studied his material. I met him several times. And one thing that I learned from him back in the 1980s, listening to a Nightingale Conant cassette tape, he said, no one is coming. No one is coming. In other words, no one's going to come to rescue you. Don't wait. In fact, you don't have any self-initiative if you're waiting for someone. Do you understand what I'm saying? So what Lisa believes is that it's passion, abundance, and purpose that you have to unlock. And what I like about what Lisa says is everyone knows what passion is. Everyone knows what abundance is. Everyone knows what purpose is. But sequentially, the way I took what she teaches, she flips it. She puts purpose third sequentially. A lot of people say start with purpose, which I think is important. And close friends of mine do, but many people don't know their purpose. So if you ask yourself, what am I passionate about? You can get a sense of it. And if you don't know, ask yourself, what am I dispassionate about? What do I loathe? And then you can get to what I love. And then abundance, what do I want more of? The passion. And then after you know your passion and you make that abundant and amplified it, then you find purpose. And that's what I learned from Lisa. Lisa, if you're watching, this is for you. And she believes that you have to motivate yourself first, kind of like John Gray does with being happy, before you can motivate the masses. And she overcame through her own heroette's journey, right? From childhood, adolescence, all the way to becoming a world-renowned thought leader. Honestly, lecturing all over the world, speaking and teaching. It's got to be motivating self first, then you can motivate the masses. Many people go to motivate the masses to handle the inadequacy they feel of not being self-motivated. And I just see them take a downward spiral. I was one of those people, and I flipped that around and start doing some inner work, back in the 1990s, and I'm still doing it. Hopefully you are too. Self-examination is super important. Socrates, who's not one of the thought leaders I interviewed, because he died nearly 2,400 years ago, He said, know thyself. So, self-motivation, self-initiated action, that starts before doing it to the masses, where you've earned the right. And one thing I love about what Lisa does, and if you watch her speak, she says, yes, yes, and everyone says yes. I say yes or no, or yes or yes, but she doesn't even say an or. She goes, yes, yes, and they say yes. And through that rhythmic call and response, she has audiences just jumping up and, giving her not only a standing ovation for her, but for themselves. And she always asks how versus if. She asks, okay, how am I going to get this done versus if it can be done? That's Lisa Nichols. And it's a silly mistake that people make. No one is going to rescue you. It's got to come from within. You can't motivate others unless you can motivate yourself. That principle of rescue, get it out of your consciousness. Text the keyword you see on your screen to this mobile number, 415-980-3555. Now, if it's your first time visiting, please subscribe to this channel. And if you've done this before, stick around because we have another high impact and high influence video coming right after this one. All good wishes.